welcome to the Bar Down Hockey Show. I'm Josh Zaklis here with Ethan Schmidt and Liesl Babicka. And,
What's up, Josh? How is your week going?
Well, it's pretty much over at this point. It was a little bit busy.
Just sad.
But, it was also filled with a lot of hockey, and that's always a good thing. So let's actually start off this week. Let's talk about the leaders in the NHL in goals, points, save percentage. So, again, Connor McDavid coming up big for the Oilers, still leading the NHL in points and assists.
I mean, he's coming up there. He's bringing the Oilers into a playoff contender team. So I think that's fantastic for them, and congratulations for him to finally be successful and not be a flop first round pick.
Absolutely, yeah. And trailing right behind him in points is Sidney Crosby, who also leads in goals in the league. He leads by a substantial amount of goals over Jeff Carter and Austin Matthews. He has 34, and the next closest one is 30.
Which he got a goal last night at the outdoor stadium series game.
He did, yeah. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. Anything to add, Ethan?
Well, I think Connor McDavid kind of embodies a young Sidney Crosby, to be honest. He's young and has his head straight. No games, just talented, and plays the game for his team. And there's no doubt that he's been a great selection as captain for the Oilers team. And he leads the team in a way that Crosby leads the Penguins. So two players, different ages, but same kind of style, same kind of leadership. And they both impress me every season.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you can see how both those players are leading their teams. The Oilers are surprising everyone with McDavid in contention for the playoffs. And the Penguins obviously just trailed the Caps for the best record in the East. So
I'm not too concerned. I think they'll push in. Maybe they'll drop out. I don't know. We'll see.
Who's going to drop out, the Caps or the Penguins?
The Penguins, but I don't think that's going to happen, so I'm not really too concerned. Maybe the Capitals will. That will, make everyone else happy on the East.
Well, if they do drop out, Brandon Holtby's going to have to play a lot worse. He leads the league in goals allowed average with 1.97. And
he's on a roll.
Absolutely. But right behind him is Devin Dubnyk, who leads the league in wins and save percentage. So
for the Wild, right?
Yeah, for Minnesota.
I mean, I feel like they're very underlooked this year. What do you think?
Well, Minnesota is sitting at the top of the Western Conference, and they have a plus 60 goal differential. The Capitals have a plus 70, both league highs. I think that it just shows how their season's going, just full of offense, and their goalies are coming up big too.
But it's interesting because it's not one of those teams I hear about, or you scroll through your Twitter feed and you don't see anything about that team, or you go on.
Speaking of scrolling through your Twitter feed, you should follow the @BarDown Hockey Show on Twitter. Just search @BH Hockey Show, and you'll find us. And we got some cool hockey updates for you. But go on, Lisa. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that there's a new hockey source out there on Twitter.
I feel like it's very, I don't know. It's just, I don't know if it's because they're one of those teams that have never really been a powerhouse, so the, announcers and people don't really discuss them as much, but I think, they should start discussing them a little more if they're doing that successful.
Well, the Wild are really flying under the radar, probably just because Chicago's been good for so long, and they're still, they're only 3 points behind Minnesota. And they're the big market. Minnesota's probably not as prominent of a market yet, but they're in the state of hockey. It's kind of hard not to be noticed. So I think Minnesota is just going to keep going forward. I'll be interested to see what they do in the playoffs. They seem to struggle in the playoffs. And looking at the Capitals, Braden Holtby playing so well this season. He always seems to have a tough time going in the postseason. So, for me, I want to see the Capitals succeed. It just because it's like you dominate the regular season, like you should really dominate the playoffs, but they always seem to mess something
I don't
up.
know if I exactly want them to succeed being
All
a
right, well,
Penguins
you're
fan.
a Penguins fan.
But
so-
at the same time, I would like to see Ovechkin hold the cup because
Exactly.
he's come so close yet so far every single year. I don't really care for the rest of the team, but I do think Ovechkin deserves a cup.
You know who's trying to get to the playoffs, though? Austin Matthews and the Maple Leafs. And Matthews had a pretty big game last night. He picked up his 30th goal of the season, and he was the third player in the NHL to get to 30 goals this season.
Yeah, Toronto's sitting at 7th place in the East. He's a big reason why that they're even contending. And the young star is just budding. And I think he could step into that Connor McDavid role next season. They could put him as captain just as easily as Edmonton did with McDavid. Matthews he always knows where the puck's gonna be. Stick on the ice, making plays for his team. He's a beautiful young player. I think he has a bright future in Toronto.
Yeah, I agree too. I think he's not going anywhere anytime soon. And if they were to trade him, I don't know if they would be throwing away all that they have right now. So.
No, they're not trading him.
No.
They're not trading him. He has as much chance of being traded as Sidney Crosby has or Connor McDavid has. He's not being traded.
I think he's going to turn into the franchise player of that franchise of
Most
Toronto.
definitely.
And he also made a little bit of history last night, becoming only the 17th teenager, only a year older than me. And I don't know, I know you guys are 19, but I'm not 19 yet. But he's 19 years old, and he's the 17th teenager in NHL history to score at least 30 goals in his rookie campaign.
Honestly, it's sometimes when you hear these statistics and these kids are the same ages as you. Like, I'm the same age as Austin Matthews, and it's like, wow, am I really failing that hard in my life? Like, am I really not being that successful? I don't
think you're failing, Lisa. I just think that he's a lot better at hockey than you. Just like you're a lot better at journalism than he is.
I know, but like just in life general. Like, I mean, you see all these players and you're just like, wow, what am I doing? Or like when you see the who go to the Olympics, and I'm like, wow, and how old are they? And what am I doing
Like
with my life?
16, 17 years
And I'm
old.
still sitting on my couch eating potato chips, and it just doesn't change. So we'll see. I'm glad that he's being so successful, and for the state of Arizona, because he is a hot spot for the state of Arizona being so successful.
Anyway, so yesterday was the Stadium Series in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It took place at Heinz Field, and it was between the Penguins and the Flyers. So, Lisa, I know you were paying attention to that.
I was paying attention. I was going to James's game, watch his juniors team, and so I get to the cafe expecting it to be on. Nope, it was dirt bike racing, and then they put on Slapshot. I'm like, what are these people doing with their lives? And then finally in the second intermission, they put it on, but I was following along on my phone during the game that I was watching, and it's a game. It is what it is. It's every other game. It's just a little more advertised and a little more put out there. I'm
So you're
glad.
not a fan of it?
I love it. I think the fact that they're having 4 or 5 Stadium Series games a year now is a little much. It's like, okay, then just give everyone a Stadium Series game. I think when it first brought up, I think check me if I'm wrong, but I think Crosby. The first one against Buffalo, that was the very first Stadium Series game, I believe. And so, that's a long time ago now, and that was only one game. But now they're up to, 4 a year, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, they used to do 1 a year, and now last year and this year they're starting to do more games. I think it's just to promote revenue at a different location in the city, and just to explore it and give more cities the opportunity to experience that game, because it is really cool. It's a great idea. Kind of goes back to like the Canadian roots of hockey, the North American roots, playing outside on ponds, and when people didn't have a whole lot to build a nice facility and play indoors. And it's a cool concept. I really like it. And when the teams wear different jerseys, the goalies wear cool equipment. They'll wear like the classic pads and different jerseys than what they've worn during the season. I really think it's a great idea.
I think it is a great idea, but I think it's like, well, why? I think it should just continue to be one maybe two games a year. I don't think it should be any more.
And I think that's what it is. I think they have around one Winter Classic. Well, they only have one Winter Classic a year. I think this year it was 3 because they had the Centennial Classic, the Winter Classic, and one Stadium Series game.
So they just add on. So it's like there's one Winter Classic and then there's like kind of a Stadium Series.
Yeah, so I think it's around 2 a year. But yeah, I think they are doing a pretty decent job. I mean, I was just looking at the attendance for the Stadium Series games, and all of them have been over 50,000 people. And it shows that when the NHL puts on a show, people actually come out and watch. I mean, the highest one was LA Kings versus Sharks a few years ago with 70,000 people showing up.
That.
But
for me as a fan though, my dad and I were thinking about going, but it was the concern of, you're sitting in a football stadium, you might be blocked out on some of your view. So it's like, is it worth the money going to see and watching your team play? I mean, I think it would be a phenomenal experience. Don't get me wrong. I was very for going, but at the same time, it's like, oh, you get up there and what if you can't see at all? That's kind of a bummer. You're paying all that money to fly from Arizona to Pittsburgh and you just can't see.
I actually went to the Winter Classic a few years ago. Through one of my old radio shows, we got press passes to go to the Winter Classic when the Capitals played the Blackhawks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Nationals Park, and it was definitely an interesting atmosphere. So yeah, I do feel bad for the people that were sitting like in the left field bleachers or something that probably couldn't see it as well, but it was certainly an interesting atmosphere. It was really fun because it was a cold January day, January 1st. Obviously, that's when the Winter Classic is, and yeah, I mean, you're gonna have worse seats because it's an outdoor game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think overall the experience is really cool. They gave like seat cushions for each of the fans because I guess they felt that the Nationals seats weren't comfortable enough for the NHL fans. And then at the end of the game, when the Capitals scored their game-winning goal, you had people throwing their seat cushions up in the air all around the stadium. So I thought that was really cool.
Well, I mean, the Penguins were really successful yesterday. They won 4-2, and you mentioned, Ethan, the jerseys. I think the jerseys yesterday were really slick. If you didn't really understand the concept, they had the gold, and then the lettering and the numbering were barred off, kind of like steel. And they were being represented when they were here in Phoenix, and when I went to Denver, a lot of people had them on, and I definitely would buy one of those jerseys. I think it's really cool. I have the one from the Winter Classic way back in 2008, the blue one, and I think that's a slick jersey as well. But Sidney Crosby started off the game by scoring the first goal of the game, so that was really good. And then Nick Bonino, which our friend Ryan, Bonino, and Matt Cullen, which is exciting because he's getting up there in age and he's still producing and being successful. And then Chad Ruhwedel? I don't know
either.
Second goal of the year, but that's really exciting to score in a Stadium Series game like that.
And you mentioned, I'm sorry, who's the third player you mentioned?
Matt Cullen.
Cullen's 40 years old. It was his first outdoor game, and he scored.
Yeah.
So that's a fun experience for him. Also yesterday, One Republic was supposed to perform, but they canceled, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday. Again, if you go to @BH Hockey Show, I know we retweeted what One Republic said. They had to cancel because their lead singer got, sick. Yeah, he was ill.
And then Train replaced him, you said?
Yeah, they did replace them. So let's. We're getting
That's
close.
kind of like a Super Bowl thing.
I want to mention that the Twitter is capital BDH_show, just for all of our followers out there, just to respell it out for you. But Let's talk about the Western Conference trade preview, guys.
Yeah, the way trade deadline is in a few days, March 1st. That's also when I'm picking classes for next semester. So a few important things are happening that day. But the action really started this past week on February 20th when Michael Stone was traded to the Flames for a third and conditional 5th round pick. Coyotes made that deal. Any initial thoughts?
I know there was some concern about it. Going through my Twitter feed of some Coyote fans who were not exactly happy about that trade. I think they needed to make a move. They need to go somewhere. He only had 1 goal this season and only 10 assists. I mean, that's not really that successful. So I think they were probably better off getting rid of him. Maybe he'll be more successful with the Flames, and the picks that they pulled out will be, helpful to them in the future.
Absolutely, and we also had the Carolina Hurricanes trading defenseman Keegan Lowe to Montreal Canadiens for defenseman Philip Samuelsson, and the Canadiens, so just a straight up trade there for the Canadiens and the Hurricanes.
But the Hurricanes seemed very busy this week because they also traded another defenseman, Ron Hansey, to the Penguins for forward Danny Cristo and a 2nd round pick in the 2017 draft. So they look like they're trying to make a difference here.
Absolutely. The Hurricanes, they find themselves towards the bottom of the heap in standings. They're 15th in the Eastern Conference out of 16 teams, only trailed by our friend Emma's team, the Detroit Red Wings.
Who, in fact, I believe, their 25th season that they were trying to get to the playoffs, and they're probably...
I believe it was in 91.
91? So. I think that's a panic for Red Wings fans, that the fact that they are going to get pushed out of the playoffs.
It's going to be quite a shock. 25 seasons going to the playoffs. I know tons of Red Wings fans, and they really took pride in that. Like my friend back home in Nashville, his family's from Detroit, and he would always roast me about how the Predators haven't won a cup, and that the Red Wings had a playoff streak of over 20 years in recent years, and now it's going to be quite a shock value to Red Wings
Well,
fans.
Ethan, you can say to him, hey, especially if the Predators make the playoffs, you can say, hey, so which team has the longest playoff streak? Because I know the Predators have a 1-season playoff streak.
But the Red Wings are trying to make a difference, and they made a trade 2 days ago. Again, they traded with the Blackhawks. They traded Thomas Jurko to the Blackhawks for a 3rd round pick in the 2017 draft. So maybe they're trying to push a playoff run. I don't know. They're trying to not lose the hope of that.
Well, I mean, considering they got rid of Tomas Jurko, I don't know. I thought it was a nice move for the Red Wings. I mean, they're still rebuilding, and they've been rebuilding on the fly a lot during this 25-year playoff run, because you can't really stop and just say, all right, well, let's rebuild. We have a 23-year playoff streak going, but let's just stop it now. So they've been trying to rebuild on the fly, but again, looks like they're going to have to actually rebuild now that they've been struggling.
I think their problem is that they just had so many veterans and so many great players that just kind of they all got old at the same time. With Nicholas Lindstrom and Pavel Datsyuk, Zetterberg, they all just they kind of got old together, And, it sucks for them, but
it does suck. I think the Penguins are kind of headed into that direction unless they trade one of their higher players, because they're all about the same age. So you're right, Then you totally have a franchise falling out because all their players got gray hair at the same time.
Yeah, Malkin and Crosby are relatively on the same timeline, I think. So
and Kessel's a little
hopefully
bit
it
below
doesn't happen with the Penguins like it is with the Red Wings this year.
Absolutely. And then yesterday we saw the Lightning trade Jeremy Morin to the Arizona Coyotes for Steven Fournier. But guys, let's talk about the Western Conference. I mean, we talked about the Eastern Conference a lot last week in regards to the trade deadline, but who do you guys see making a move in the Western Conference to maybe bolster their chances to make the playoffs?
Well, actually, I'm kind of shocked that the Dallas Stars, they made a trade, but not the one that everyone was looking at. They traded forward Patrick Eves to the Ducks for a conditional second-round pick in the 2017 draft. I think a lot of people are kind of on edge of what the Dallas Stars are going to be doing. There's talk that Sharp was going to be traded back to the Blackhawks, so we'll have to see what that entails in the next couple of days, because that was pretty big rumor, so we'll see if they follow through with that.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, just looking at the Western Conference, I mean, I could see easily Los Angeles Kings. They are 3 points out of a playoff spot right now, and they just got Jonathan Quick back yesterday.
They did. They finally got him back, so that's hopefully they'll push through or see what happens for them in the wild card spot.
Yeah.
Well, I think the Kings without Jeff Carter, they wouldn't be much this season. Jeff Carter's really stepped up, been a huge scorer for them. Really being that leader for them that they need to even stay alive in some kind of playoff contention. But for me, moves that I see, I mean, we see that the Dallas Stars are starting to fall apart, giving away players. It's just been kind of a sad season for them. I haven't heard much from Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin. Not that the Stars would get rid of those guys, but they might just be biting the nail this season and distributing some players across the league. And Vancouver absolutely just sunk down. I'm not sure what they want to do with the Sedin brothers. They're getting old. They might end up retiring, or maybe they can move them.
Which they mentioned, or we mentioned earlier in our show, that they wouldn't mind being traded because they understand that their time is over in Vancouver.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's just it's been a road long traveled in Vancouver for the Sedin brothers. So maybe they could find a new home. I don't know if they would split up or not, but
I don't think they would. I think they're a package deal, because that's what happened when they were first drafted. They were drafted separately, and I believe one of them was drafted by the Blackhawks, and then they made a trade for him so they would get them together.
So you think there's no chance that one gets sent to the Eastern Conference, one gets sent to the Western Conference, and they meet up in the finals?
No, I don't think that's a possibility.
That would have been a cool story, though.
It would have been a cool story.
Well,
I
think both of them going as a package deal is a cool story too. Like, it's not often you see that, and that players stick together and get traded to the same team. It's interesting. But looking at 6, 7, 8, Calgary's hanging in there. They might try to make some kind of move to jump, but I think they're going to stick with what they have, especially in Johnny Gaudreau, young talent there in Calgary. St. Louis hanging on the 8th spot. They've lost their last two. We talked about it in previous shows about them switching to Mike Yao. It's seeming like it's kind of stagnant right now for them.
Well, they're 7-3-0 in their last 10. So, they've lost their last two, but I mean, if they can keep up that pace through 10 games, then.
Well, I'm curious, Ethan. Nashville is sitting in the 6th spot in the Western Conference. What do you think they're going to be making any moves?
It's hard to judge with David Poile, a GM like that. He came in, didn't really want to make like crazy moves, but he showed that he's capable. He'll do what it takes when he sent Weber to Montreal for Subban, and I don't know if he would do anything drastic at the deadline, but maybe move a few players around. But Nashville's got a solid core with James Neal, Subban, the young player Forsberg stepping up. He got back consecutive hat tricks. That seems to be unheard of these days. Getting a hat trick in back-to-back games. So Philip Forsberg really stepping up for the Preds. I think they have a good core, and they just need to win the close games. I know the Predators go to extra time a lot, going into OT and shootouts, and that's where they seem to lose their points. They'll still get 1 point, when they could easily have gotten 2. So I think if they just keep playing the way they are right now, there's no need to really make anything drastic.
Well, either of you expect, what do you expect the last couple days of the trade deadline to be like? Do you think there's going to be some drastic trades? Do you think there's going to be minimal trades? What do you think?
I think we're going to see some moves. I think there are a few teams that are close to the outside looking in that really have strong hockey followings. I know Boston's on the edge. They're a big hockey city, at least at the collegiate level, and I'm sure a lot of that translates to the pro level. They're in the 8th spot in the East right now. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe they at least try to make a move. Toronto, again, first time in the playoff race in a long time. They've got a strong following in the East. And then looking back at the West, again, Los Angeles just outside the playoffs. Winnipeg just outside the playoffs. Calgary and St. Louis barely in the playoffs. So I could see some of those teams trying to make some moves.
What I think would be a good trade? You know, we were talking about if the Coyotes wanted to move Shane Doan. Mm-hmm. I could see him going to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I don't think it's on the radar, but just imagine Doan going to Maple Leafs for this year to join Matthews. Do you think that would be a cool trade?
I think it would be a cool trade, but I would be curious to see what they would do with him in Toronto because like I mentioned before, he's really slowed down over the last season. So I'd be curious to see if he would be able to keep up with that high talent and young kids.
So Doan's on a 1-year deal with the Coyotes. So I think a few things would have to happen. First of all, I think the Maple Leafs would want to get almost like a reassurance that Doan is going to be re-signed. Or if that can't happen, then the price is going to drop. So I think it's possible, but I think that if the Coyotes and Maple Leafs aren't talking like right now, I don't think it's going to happen.
I do definitely see him retiring after this year. I think that's their.
I think so.
There. Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll just all have to keep an eye on on Twitter, keep an eye on NHL.com, and keep an eye on @BDH Show, right, Ethan?
Capital BDH_show.
Yeah, and keep an eye on that Twitter account, our Twitter account, for some trade deadline updates, especially on March 1st on the trade deadline. We have classes, but we all have classes at different times, so I'm sure some of us will be able to update the account. And that's pretty much it for this week.
Well, this week is, our last week before spring break. Unfortunately, Josh is leaving us.
I am leaving you guys for a week.
Yeah, you are leaving us for a week. So this is going to be our last show for, I believe, 2 weeks. We won't have one next week, but hopefully, we'll touch on a lot of different subjects 2 weeks from now. We really appreciate you listening in, and we hope you tune in to our Twitter page. That's really up and coming for us, and it's really exciting. So if you have a Twitter, please feel free to follow us along because we are looking to get our word out and our name out. We appreciate you for watching. I'm Liesl Babicka, and you can follow me on Twitter at Liesl_Lee, LIESL_LEE.
You can follow me at Ethan Schmidt, TheEthanSchmidt.
I'm Josh Zaklis. You can follow me on Twitter at Josh Zaklis, JOSZAKLIS. And this is Bar Down Hockey.